Hey, thank you. Appreciate that. Excited to be here. The part that she didn't tell you is that if you win any cash, we're splitting that 50-50. So make sure you come find me.
All good.
Hope everybody's having a great time. Again, I appreciate you being here today. So today we're going to discuss about making the most out of your busiest days, maximizing your throughput at your express or full serve tunnels. When we think about growing the car wash business, the conversation often centers around revenue operations, things like growing memberships, increasing retail traffic, and building customer loyalty. And that makes sense, right? Make no mistake, those things are absolutely critical to your success. But there's another side of the coin that oftentimes doesn't get the same spotlight, and that's tunnel operations. Because here's the thing, customer loyalty isn't just built on great marketing or slick offers. It's built on consistency. A consistent, smooth, and fast customer experience is what keeps your customers coming back. So today we're gonna zoom in on that side of the coin, and we'll talk about how focusing on your tunnel operation specifically during your busiest days drives greater efficiency, improves the customer experience, and ultimately makes your business more scalable and more profitable. My name is Alex Morenas. I'm the Director of Product Management for Inside Tunnel and Hardware at DRB. I started in the industry working on a product called NoPileups. It's a full tunnel optimization solution. I've now been in the industry for about 7 years, and I've loved every minute of it. I'm passionate about technology, people, processes, and data. So we're gonna jump into that. All right, so number one, my favorite line is, how do you improve what you're not measuring? If you wanna optimize your wash operations, you've got to measure performance. It's really just that simple. Key metrics like throughput, conveyor utilization, and downtime, they're not just numbers. They're directly tied to your efficiency and your profitability. You've probably heard it or even said it yourself. I feel like we're efficient. I feel like we're busy. I feel like our processes are consistent. But here's the reality. Gut feels just don't cut it anymore. And more to the point, your competitor down the road isn't relying on their gut. So let me give you a real life scenario where those feels can lead you astray. My wife likes to order things on Amazon. She'll order that nice looking piece of furniture, the real high quality stuff, right? The stuff that you get off of Amazon. You know, the stuff that arrives in that really flat box. It's got an instruction manual that's this big, the small bag of screws. I take one look at it and I think, I got this. I feel like I can put it together. I don't need the instructions. Fast forward, couple hours in, lots of bad words, and the data, the time on the clock, and the amount of bad words I've said suggests that my feels maybe were a little bit off. Everything looks okay, but you're sitting there wondering, what did I miss, right? You got those 3 screws left over. Everybody knows those 3 screws that you got left over. And you're asking yourself, what went wrong, right? Where did I go wrong? You look at it and it seems like the structure is there, but the integrity, absolutely questionable. And that's exactly what can happen when you try to make operational decisions without data. Without tracking baselines and measuring your outcomes, we're essentially building blind and we're hoping for our best. But hope, as we all know, is simply not a strategy. Everyone here probably tracks a dozen, maybe even 2 dozen metrics around what I call revenue operations, right? And that makes, again, a ton of sense. It's visible, it's top line. We've all been trained to chase those numbers. But when it comes to tunnel operations, those metrics oftentimes take a back seat, and that's a missed opportunity. I like to think of a car wash as a mini assembly line. If you've ever looked at manufacturing plants, you'll know the focus is relentless. They focus on peak efficiency, max output, consistent quality every single time. Why should it be any different in a car wash tunnel? When we apply the same manufacturing mindset tracking baselines, establishing KPIs, and making data-driven decisions, we start to unlock the performance of our wash operation. So when we start to focus on tunnel KPIs, you end up with 4 big outcomes. We'll start with consistency. With consistency, I look at it as an internal and an external impact. So consider the external impact. Every car that goes through your tunnel is a moment of truth. It might be the customer's first visit or their 100th visit. They'll remember it if it's inconsistent, and an inconsistency will erode trust with your customer. On the internal impact, if your tunnel isn't consistent, then your policies all of a sudden become optional. It's something that your staff members choose to do, maybe they don't do. It's completely up to them, right? And that leads to shortcuts, variation, and friction for your team and your customers. Moving on to quality. Your brand stands for something. If that something is quality, then it needs to show up in every single wash, every single time. Your tunnel is your last line of defense when it comes to protecting that standard. Scalability. Scaling a car wash business isn't just about opening new sites. It's about replicating what's already working for you. And if you don't know what's working, if you don't have access to the data or the KPIs, how do you repeat that? Data helps set that blueprint that you can now start applying to every new wash location that you add or that you acquire. Moving on to efficiency. Again, this is a metric that I like to think has an external and an internal impact. Customers today expect speed. So when you look at that external impact, keep that in mind, especially your retail customers. They might be trying your wash for the first time. The word express in express car wash, it's got to mean something. If you are slow or you're inconsistent, they'll notice and they might not come back. Internally, if you're not tracking efficiency, your team assumes it's not a priority. You're not giving it the level of care. You're not putting that on display for your team to track against. That's not just a missed opportunity for performance, it's a potential hit to your revenue. The bottom line is when you start tracking the tunnel like it's the heart of your operation and tracking it accordingly, everything begins to improve. The customer experience, the employee experience, and yes, your bottom line. So taking a look at the screen, you'll see the chart there with a couple different trend lines. The chart on the screen shows a 2-week reporting period. It overlays your org average as well as the industry average for that day. This chart is allowing a site to org to industry comparison. So this particular metric, which is wash demand, and more specifically vehicles washed, is probably one of the most familiar metrics to everyone in the room. Vehicles washed per day is one of the first numbers that people track when they get into the business. You probably have a handful of different systems that you can pull this metric out of. Again, pretty common, pretty well-known and established metric. But where this gets really valuable is when you start layering in additional context. In this view, you're not just seeing what's happening at your site, but you're also seeing how your site is performing compared to competitors across the industry or across your organization. So if I looked at Monday and it was a little slow, you can now ask a better question. Was Monday slow for everyone, or was it just slow for my site? The context is powerful because if you're seeing a dip and the rest of the industry is flat or climbing, that's a signal to dig in. But if the whole industry took a hit, maybe it rained regionally, you had some adverse weather, or maybe there's a holiday, the key here is that you're not overreacting to the potential noise. It's the same story for an hourly breakdown. Once you can pinpoint your busiest hours or your lulls, you can start optimizing staffing, maintenance schedules, and even marketing campaigns to push volume into your slower times. So let's say you've started tracking wash volume data and you're starting to compare it across the industry. You're starting to see those averages. You've gotten some good insight. Now what? What do you do with that information? This is where things get fun, because once you identify whether you are above or you are below standard, you can start making smarter decisions. If you're below average, that's an opportunity. Start by asking, can I drive more traffic through marketing or customer experience improvements? Is my brand delivering a consistent enough experience that people will keep coming back? Here's an analogy I like to think about. Consider restaurants. They don't run happy hours because they love selling wings and drinks at a discounted price, right? They do it because they're trying to iron out the swings in their volume. They're trying to bring people in during their slowest times. The same concept can apply here. What promotions or incentives could you run to bring more traffic in on your slowest days? Also, consider taking a look at staffing. Are your staffing labors aligned with your volume? Sometimes it's not about just increasing traffic, it's about making the most out of the team that you already have. Now, what if you're above average? First off, that's fantastic. Awesome job. You're doing something right. So that's great. But now it's about squeezing more juice out of that lemon. When you are already busy, the next challenge becomes, how do I move cars through faster without compromising the quality? This is where diving in deeper to your other KPIs like throughput, conveyor utilization, and downtime really matters. Every vehicle that you move more efficiently is more revenue, lower wait times, and a better customer experience. Here's a quick example. Let's say that you notice that Mondays are consistently slower. You might choose to scale back staffing slightly in the short term, but you don't stop there. You dig into why. Are we marketing at the right times? Are memberships dropping off on Mondays? Could we run a limited time promo just for that day? The goal is to move from this is what's happening to this is what we're doing about it. And that is how you begin to operationalize your data. Let's dive into one of the most eye-opening KPIs, daily conveyor utilization. This metric tells you how efficiently you are using your tunnel relative to its peak capacity. In other words, of all of the cars your tunnel could wash in a day, how many are you actually washing? I like to ask high volume operators, where do you think your site lands? It's not uncommon to hear that we're slammed all day or we're washing about as many cars as we can possibly wash. And while that might feel true, this KPI starts to peel back that onion. Because when we look at the actual data, it tells a slightly different story. And let me be clear real quick, no site is going to hit 100% utilization. It's just not realistic. Between shift changes, downtime, and weather fluctuations, and human factors, there's always going to be some variability there. But here's the benchmark. Top performing sites are consistently in the 40 to 60% range. And I know some of you are probably thinking, are you kidding me? That's the benchmark? And the truth is, yeah, because the percentage is based on a theoretical max capacity over a 13-hour period. It's a tough number to push higher, especially without fine-tuned operations. So if you're in the 10, the 15, the 20% range, don't panic, that's common. But now that you're measuring it, you've got a way to begin improving on that. Whether it's identifying bottlenecks, reducing gaps, streamline load-on procedures, this KPI pinpoints exactly where there's room to optimize. So you're tracking conveyor utilization now. Great. Again, what do we do with it? Well, let's break this down into two sides, below average, above average. If you're below average, it might mean one of two things. You're simply not seeing enough traffic, or your wash isn't running as efficiently as it could. Let's say you're not running vehicles bumper to bumper. That might signal inefficient wash times or frequent e-stops that are hurting your flow. This is the time to ask questions like, are our e-stop events happening too often? And why are they happening? Are there choke points in our process? Think about your pay stations. Think about your load-on procedures and how quickly your team recovers from an e-stop. On the flip side, if you are above average, that's a great signal, but it doesn't mean the work is done. Now it's time to double down. Focus on maintaining consistency in how vehicles are being loaded and processed, and ensure nothing in the tunnel is slowing you down, especially during your peak hours. Here are some actionable steps that you can look to take. Are your marketing efforts pulling in the right volume? Is your customer experience encouraging repeat visits? Are there inconsistencies in your operations? For example, do some team members leave a bigger gap between vehicles than others? Let me give you another scenario here. You've got a solid queue of cars, maybe even a line out to the street. The perception might be, we're crushing it. But utilization data might show otherwise. It might reveal gaps, delays, or load on inconsistencies that are holding you back from maximizing your throughput. This KPI gives you the signal. It's your job to investigate and act, and once you do, you'll start to see real gains in efficiency and revenue. Let's talk about average conveyor speed. Seemingly a KPI that most people talk about. It gets thrown around a lot, but I don't think that it gets the attention that it deserves. This metric directly impacts your wash quality, and it's influenced from a variety of factors, right? We know chemistry, equipment layout, timing, and of course, wash volume can drive what you set as your conveyor speed. But here's why it matters. You, as an operator, have already done the work. You dialed in the recipe. You have built a conveyor speed standard that balances quality and throughput. That now becomes your operating template. The real question is, are your sites following it consistently across the board? Are they following it? As an example, let's say site A is running slower than others. Was that decision based on volume, equipment limitations, or is it that there's something slipping through the cracks? This chart should be boring in most cases. You don't want any surprises. You don't want sudden dips, spikes. That's how you know that your sites are following your playbook. But if you see some variance, that's your signal to investigate. Is the change intentional and documented, or is somebody tweaking the process without understanding the full impact? And here's the bigger picture. Consistency across locations is everything when you're building trust with your customers. A car wash should feel the same no matter which location they visit. Average conveyor speed is a way to validate that. It's not just a number, it's a pulse check on your operational discipline. So what do? If you're below average, this is an opportunity to consider increasing your chain speed while maintaining your wash quality. Ask the question, are we being too cautious? Could we push a little harder without sacrificing the customer experience? If you're above average, ensure that your wash quality and your customer satisfaction aren't slipping as a result of those higher chain speeds. Keep an eye out for signs like increased rewash rates, complaints, or even damage claims. Here are some of the potential actions you could also take. Test out the conveyor speed during controlled periods and monitor that feedback. Again, tracking the things that I had mentioned earlier, like the rewash rates, complaints, and damage claims. Also, train your staff on the new conveyor speed and the expectations. Make sure that they're clear on why you've set your conveyor speed at what you have, and make sure that they're following through. Also, consider implementing a tunnel optimization system like NoPileups. That will help you mitigate your risk when you do crank up the conveyor speed. Use the conveyor speed data to drive standardization across all of your locations. Closing the gap. This is probably one of my favorite metrics. I love it. So you've got a line out to the curb, the site is buzzing, the team is moving, but are you truly maximizing throughput? Average gap at peak traffic tells you how efficiently vehicles are being loaded during your busiest hours, the time where it matters the most. It matters because a full queue looks great, but what about the customers that saw the line and drove away? When the demand is there, your ability to close the gap between vehicles becomes critical to capitalizing on the opportunity. Seconds matter. The tighter and safe the vehicle spacing, the more cars you can process and the more revenue you can generate. All load on operators aren't created equal, but they can be trained to be equal. This KPI is more than traffic flow. It's about capturing every customer you can, maximizing revenue, and delivering a consistent experience even when the demand is at its peak. Here are some potential actions and considerations for closing the gap. If your average gap is wider than expected at peak traffic, there are a few things you could look at. It could be a training issue with your load-on team. Maybe they're hesitating, or maybe they're not confident in loading vehicles closely together. It could also point out inconsistent processes. Are all shifts following that same standard? Now, if you've already been loading vehicles as close as possible, the next question is, are we doing it safely? Tighter spacing can lead to increased throughput, but it also increases the risk for potential damage claims if your processes aren't really dialed in. Another thing to watch out for is variation between shifts or sites. If you're seeing big differences, that might reveal performance gaps or lack in consistency in how your team is applying your standards. Some other things to consider as you dive into this. Reinforce the best load-on practices, especially during your peak times. Set clear, measurable benchmarks for the ideal vehicle spacing with your team. Coach your team for confidence and consistency. Consider a solution, again, like NoPileups, that enables you to load these vehicles closer together with confidence while reducing the risk of in-tunnel collisions. I lied. I said the last stat was the favorite. This one's actually my favorite. Let me get into that. So when you look at this e-stop time through the lens of a customer, they're in the middle of your tunnel. There's a car in front of them, one behind them. Suddenly, everything stops. The conveyor shuts off, the equipment stops running, the windows are covered in soap, so they can't see anything, they're stuck. No idea what just happened, no way to ask. 10 seconds starts to quickly feel like 10 minutes to the customer. The customer isn't only wondering what's happened, but they're now also beginning to feel like their wash has been impacted. It's not just a momentary stop for us. It's a jarring experience for them. The e-stop time metric tracks the minutes the conveyor was stopped while there were vehicles in the tunnel. It's a direct hit to operational efficiency, but more than that, it's a hit to the customer experience, and that moment sticks for them. The e-stop time metric, there are almost no scenarios where high e-stop time is okay. It's usually a signal that something went wrong. Maybe that's with the equipment, maybe that's communication, or maybe it's with training. When this number goes up, you want to dive in immediately, not just to recover throughput, but to understand the impact to your customers and make sure your team understands that too. This KPI isn't just about efficiency, it's about empathy. Even though the ideal number is 0, we all know some e-stop time is just going to happen. The goal here isn't perfection. The goal is to minimize it. If you're seeing above average, great, you're ahead of the curve, but the question is, should you stop there? Probably not, because remember, every e-stop is a disruption that your customer feels. Now that you have that KPI in place, challenge your team to keep improving even from a strong starting point. If your numbers are below average, now it's time to engage. Sit down with your team and start asking questions. What are the common scenarios where e-stop is being used? Is it a load-on issue? That's oftentimes a really common culprit. Is it customer behaviors triggering it? And if so, how can we better educate and guide our customers through the experience? Is it a safety or mechanical issue? Are we using e-stop as a catch-all when a more proactive solution could actually be deployed? The takeaway here is you now have a starting point for your investigation. Tag your team in and get to the bottom of what's driving heavy e-stop usage. Your customers and your efficiency will thank you. At the end of the day, this is what it's all about. Data tells a story, only if we're willing to listen to it. Each of the KPIs we've talked about today is a piece of that story. On their own, they give you helpful snapshots. but together they start to paint a picture of how your wash is running and more importantly, the areas that you can improve. Increasing throughput isn't just about running more cars. It's about tightening the gap, loading efficiently, and making sure your conveyor speed is dialed in. Reducing downtime means tracking things like idle time and e-stops head on, knowing that every moment your conveyor isn't moving, it's a missed opportunity and a potential hit to the customer experience. Improving loader performance means building consistency, coaching your team, and reinforcing the operational template you've worked so hard to build. Enhancing the customer experience. That's the through line of all of this. When your tunnel runs smoother, faster, and more consistently, your customers will feel it. It will be the thing that keeps them coming back. So the takeaway here is this. These metrics aren't just for reporting. They're for revealing. They shine a light on what's working, what's not, and what you can do to move the needle. When you track the right KPIs and use them with intention, you're not just running a wash, you're leading a high-performing operation. Sorry about that. At this point, you might be thinking to yourself, okay, great. How do I get these data points? And NoPileups is the answer to that question. With the NoPileups solution, you're not only able to drive consistency, scalability, efficiency, and quality, but you also ensure you're delivering on those commitments through continuous tracking of those key metrics. So the next question is, what is NoPileups? NoPileups is our full tunnel optimization solution. It uses computer vision to track every vehicle from the entrance to the exit of your tunnel. If there's ever a risk of a collision, the system will automatically trigger an emergency stop to prevent any potential damage. But it's more than just collision prevention. The NoPileups platform also delivers powerful reporting on operational KPIs, giving your team the insight it needs to maximize your throughput and your operations. With the NoPileups solution, you will see all the benefits that I've listed above. Increased throughput, reduced downtime, reduction in damage claim, protection of your investments, improved loading performance, and most importantly, an elevated customer experience. NoPileups isn't just a tool for surfacing key data points, it's a strategic partner that helps you turn your insights into action and action into results. It's designed to support your team in not only identifying opportunities, but actually achieving the outcomes that matter most to your organization. On the screen, you'll see a QR code that will take you to our website where you can download the latest NoPileups industry report. It will give you some of the KPIs that I've shared today, but based on an industry, oh, I lost my slide. There we go. So go ahead and scan that QR code. Like I was saying, it will give you an industry report of those KPIs that I've shared today. It's an insightful resource to help you kind of start to benchmark your organization. Once again, my name is Alex Morenas. I want to thank you for your time, and I hope you enjoy the rest of your time here at ICA.